This is Bobby Kraft coming to you live on SNN Live, and we're here at the Cambridge House International California Investment Conference 2014 in Palm Springs. With me to my right is Brent Cook of Exploration Insights. Brent, welcome to SNN Live.
Glad to see you in California.
It's good to be here. So, tell our audience, what are you here talking about?
What I'm going to go through in my speech this afternoon is why I believe we're reaching a pinch point in the minerals exploration and mining sector where we are not finding enough new deposits, mineral deposits, to replace what's being mined, and why that's really important to look out into the future for investors and speculators in this sector, because I think it's going to be a great time this year to position yourself for what's going to be a real run in the mining companies over the next 3 or 4 years.
So that's an interesting starting point, because the first part of that statement you said, I don't know how we're going to be able to find more, I guess, economical mines, so to speak.
Yes.
But then at the same time, you're talking about how junior mining could be something to look at long term. Can you explain that gap, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we've covered as exploration geologists, we've covered the world really well. We've picked off the easy deposits that are sitting at surface in most every country. And so now it's getting much more difficult to find new deposits. Yet on the other hand, we're consuming more metals, annual basis. Right now, we're producing on average about 85 million ounces a year of gold, and about 19 million tons of copper per year. We're not finding that much new metal. So the major mining companies are facing a serious dilemma going forward, is they're not finding the deposits to replace what's being produced, but they're going to have to, because the global population is just, it's increasing. There's no doubt about that. And people in the third world countries are moving into, better living environments and such, better standards of living, and we're going to be using more and more metal. So there's this pinch point coming that eventually the major mining companies are going to have to go out and buy the very few junior mining companies who are successful in discovering and proving up an economic deposit. Now, it's not hard to find uneconomic deposits. They're all over the place, but it's the economic ones you want to focus on.
Sure. Sorry, this is just really fascinating, that this idea that, because of the growing populations and the greater use of metals, not just silver and copper and so on, but other metals as well, you start to think to yourself, well, what are the implications of needing to find more metals? Will this be displacing for some populations in various parts of the world, or what are possible implications of this? Like, what is being done other than just having to go out and buy the economical deposits from the junior miners?
Well, we've got to find them, right?
Right.
And it is much harder to find them. I've got a slide in my presentation that shows over the past 50 years the depth of discoveries, below the surface is getting deeper. It just goes like that. So deeper and deeper and deeper. That means it's more expensive to explore for them, it's more expensive to find them, and it's more expensive to mine them. So it's getting more and more difficult to find these new deposits. Plus, you throw in a lot of the social issues that are involved in a lot of parts of the world. The politics, a lot of countries are off limits now. It's just a unique setup for us, that all we've got to do right now is identify the very few real economic discoveries and deposits, and the companies that own them, with competent management, with money, et cetera, and stick with those and buy them, accumulate them over time, this year.
See, another interesting thing is the fact that what's being done politically, let's say, because I've been hearing a lot about the U.S., and U.S. maybe over the last few years hasn't been not so much a hotbed, but not a lot of mining has been done because there's so much regulation from the environment, the EPA and so on. So is there anything going on politically that may actually make the U.S. more economical, so to speak, to mine in?
The U.S. is still a good place to explore, depending on where you are. It's gotten more and more difficult, more and more time-consuming. For instance, right now, there's the issue in Nevada is the sage grouse. It's a bird about yay big that lives in sagebrush, and Nevada is all sagebrush. Anyway, if there's a sage grouse in your area, it becomes much more difficult to drill a hole. There's some snail in California deserts that's an issue. Just those sorts of things make it more difficult. And again, that goes to my bottom line, is that discoveries take longer to find. Putting a mine into production takes longer time. Over the past 20 years, your average timeline from discovery to production has increased from about 6 years to 20 years right now, from once you find something to putting it into a big deposit into production. So all those things are just building up to the point where new deposits, economic deposits, are going to be worth a lot.
Brings me to my next question, which I was going to say, because I'm 25. I'm part of Generation Y, this new generation of young investors coming up. So why would with everything that you're saying, would junior mining companies and junior mining be not impactful, but maybe something that people my age should take a look at?
Well, consider, you're going to buy a house someday.
Sure.
Maybe you've got one now. You're going to stock it with a refrigerator, washing machine, dryer, all that stuff. You're going to buy a nice car. You're going to fly somewhere. All that takes metal. You're going to use, all that takes metal. And that's just not happening here in the States. It's happening even more so in China, India, Asia. That's all happening. So young people coming into the market are going to be consuming these things. There's no doubt about it. And it's not, certainly mining and exploration and geology, it's not as trendy and as exciting as something like Snapchat, but it is reality. It is something that exists and is going to be used. These are hard assets that you are going to use, for the rest of your life, and so are your kids and their kids. So that's why I think it's important.
See, it's funny because I remember having conversations with my friends in high school and college being like, oh man, that's so smart. Like, how did they think of doing the stuff behind the scenes? And that's what they did and made their millions doing that way. With junior mining, that's always been something that ever since I've been in the business and been coming to Cambridge shows and going around the world to these various mining conferences, that's always been that piece in the back of my mind of like, oh, this is what goes on behind the scenes. This is how I'm able to use my smartphone,
Yeah, your smartphone has got some high-tech, rare earths in it. Mm-hmm. Your car has got platinum palladium within the catalytic converter, plus all the copper and lead and stuff that goes into it. All that goes into what you use every day that's so, high-tech and makes life so easy.
So, where can our audience go and find out more information about your thoughts, your insights, and maybe even this video?
Yeah, my website is explorationinsights.com. Very simple. You can Google me. On my website, I've got a number of free articles that go through a lot of things we talked about, some investment tips, some rules of thumb for what to look for in junior mining, and investment type things. And I'm always available for, send me an email.
It's very approachable too. Very nice guy. So this has been Bobby Kraft, Bobby Kraft, live here on SNN Live at the Cambridge House International California Investment Conference 2014 in Palm Springs. Brent, I'd like to thank you again for coming on to SNN Live.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.